Chapter 2, Using Perception to Understand Self and Others. First, let's talk about what perception is. Perception is quite literally how you see things. What you see, what you choose to see, what you don't choose to see. We are inundated constantly with data. Odors, colors, sounds, feelings, temperatures, all those things come at you constantly. All those things are coming and are being processed. Some things you actually pay attention to, others you don't. Some things you get subconsciously. Some things you just go right past you because you weren't paying attention. This is the first step in dealing with your perception, is selecting available data. The notion is that what you see, you have to choose from that. You only get a glimpse. You only get a bit. You have to decide just quickly what is it that you're seeing, or what is it that you're hearing, what is it that you're paying attention to. So you have to select what bit of data that you actually are seeing. You've seen this flash up twice now. Let's try it one more time. What exactly are you seeing? Are you paying attention? What was you drawn to? I'm sure you're probably drawn to the one pink dot in the midst of all the green ones. This is what we chose to select. Sometimes you make a conscious decision. Sometimes you're paying attention to what it is you're looking for. Sometimes not so much. You're doing it it's your brain itself picks up on things. A lot of the data that you choose to select isn't necessarily chosen there. The red dot is because it's different. Something moves, it's there. A sound changes. You tend to look. You hear a screeching tire. You hear screeching tires. You turn to look because you're expecting an accident. Various things like that is what we do. So we select the data out of all the information bombarding us constantly, and that's how we decide what it is we're going to process. The next step is we have to sort this into organizational data into some kind of usable form. Raw data coming in doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to us. We have to kind of group things, structure things, do something to make it so we can understand it. So we start talking about the laws of organization. That's the proximity, similarity, and closure. Proximity is the notion that we group things that are grouped together. We kind of cluster them. In this case, you've got 2 columns and 2 rows. We group them together. If you're sitting in the classroom, you'll see columns of tables set up into 3 different columns. You also have rows, front row, second row, third row, etc. All of these become things that we use to group. The next thing is the laws of similarity. In this particular example, we'll see that we'll group the circles together and the squares together. We'll do that just naturally. It's not something we necessarily think about. That's just something our brains do for us. And the last one is the law of closure. As you're looking at this example, you're seeing possibly 1, 2 triangles and 3 circles because we're automatically filling in the gaps of what's missing. However, we're assuming those gaps that are missing are actually what's missing. We could be actually looking at a Star of David here. Now, once we've actually selected the data, once it's come in and once it's there, we have to interpret the data by adding meaning and making predictions. We have to assume from that information what it actually is that we're trying to process and how we're trying to perceive things. Now, in a story that we'll probably talk about later in class, discussing emotional intelligence, we're talking about the amygdala and amygdala hijacks, but it works here too. If you go into prehistoric times and you've got 2 cavemen walking out of the woods, you've got Oog and Ugg. They're walking through they're coming out of the woods. They entered into a meadow for the first time. You got weeds that are probably chest high, can't see where they're going, never been out there before, and no idea what's going on, what's out there, what could possibly be in there. So as they walk out, Oog and Ugg hear a low growl. Never heard it before? That's something they selected as data. It's different. Interpret it. Don't know what it is. Just kept going. About 2 steps later, a saber-toothed tiger jumps out and eats Ugg. And Oog, being the smart caveman he is, turns tail and runs. Now, in the future, Oog will probably associate low growl with certain death and will respond accordingly. So the same thing applies. As we hear things, as we learn things, as we do things, we interpret this data and we assign things. However, sometimes what we assign are not necessarily right. We hear a siren, and depending on our background will depend on what we think that siren is. Is it an ambulance? Is it a fire truck? Is it a police truck? If you're from around here, it could be a gas truck. You never know. So again, we assign data, we interpret data by adding meaning. This can get a little bit dangerous because we just kind of throw things out there. Now, some of the factors there's two basic scenarios, and we've talked about these earlier in the previous chapter of what influences perception. The first one are physiological factors. Those are just literally the physical things, that noise that's actually there. The fact that I'm wearing glasses, my eyesight could be a physiological factor. I may be getting old and I can't hear things, therefore my hearing is a physiological factor. It could be dark out. It could be noisy. Any of that noise that we talked about in the previous chapter would fall under physiological. And the next one is psychological. And that's the notion of things that are going wrong. Maybe I've got Alzheimer's and I'm losing my mind, and that affects my perception of things. Any kind of mental problem, even emotions, any of that can affect and change your perception of things. So that's the psychological. Now there also is the issue of cultural factors that influence perception. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time here on this particular section. I think it's page 40 in your book that this chart is on. Nope. Sorry, give me a second. Page 47 in your book. So if you want to read these, you can go through it. If you're in Arab countries, of course, those are going to change. Your culture is going to change your perception of things. If you're Japanese, that's going to be an issue. You're from the U.S., that's going to be different. If you're from Southeast Asia, if you're from the Central America or South America, all those things affect your standpoint, what you see, and therefore affect your perception of things. So as we're looking at these, and we're seeing those, and you understand that, what about in the subcultures or the co-cultures? It's different. How you communicate changes your perception of things. If I say, I lost my khakis, depending on where you're from, depending on where you're from, will mean to tell you to change the thing. If I lost my khakis, around here, those are my pants. If you're up from Boston, the khakis are what you use to start your car that you parked in a Harvard yard. So, as I said, communication is affected by, and your perceptions are affected by your culture. This looks like a good place to stop. We will pick up the rest of it from the next time.